Welcome back to The Count, where we're counting down the major stories of the week. I'm Lydia Serrani. We're now moving on to story number 6, border disorder.
It's a shame that not one Democrat member of Congress would join us on this trip despite having weeks of advance notice. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. In fact, the Democrats have called this a stunt.
Not a single Democrat showed up for the House Judiciary's border hearing in Yuma, Arizona this week. This comes as an estimated 92,000 migrants poured into that region in the last 4 months alone. And keep in mind that Yuma's total population is roughly only 95,000. And joining me now is President of the Border Security Coalition, Irene Armendariz. Jackson, am I saying it correctly? I'm sorry if I butchered it.
You're doing it perfect.
And look at my last name. And former New York State Senator and Democrat strategist David Carlucci. Welcome both to The Count, guys. So this border crisis is straining local resources. Here's what the president of the Yuma Regional Medical Center had to say about it.
Our reality is this. We have delivered over $26 million in uncompensated care to these individuals in the 12-month period from December 21 to November 22. That's an auditable figure. Let me assure you this is not an approximation. That number comes from a detailed review of unpaid patient bills directly attributed to migrant patients.
David, I'll start with you first. New York City also saying it's going to cost them billions to continue to take care of all the migrants that are arriving by the busload every single day. Most Democratic leaders continue to simply ask for more funds. But why do they still refuse to address the real problem? And that's the fact that President Biden has an open border policy here.
Well, I would disagree with that. President Biden has put forth an immigration reform plan the first day of his administration. And this is a tricky, political, controversial issue, but it's going to take some compromise on both sides of the aisle to really address the root of the problem. And that's what we have to do. Instead of pointing fingers, blaming, talking about who is not doing their job, let's talk about what we can do and work together. What I hear the Republicans talk about is their strategy is to impeach a cabinet member, something that's never been successful in the history of the U.S. government. But yet we're going to point fingers, we're going to blame, but we're not going to address the problem. So this is going to take rolling up your sleeves, taking a little bit, eating a little bit of dirt on both sides, but to really address the problem once and for all.
I respectfully disagree, and I'm hearing a lot of rolling up our sleeves. I'm hearing a lot of adages, but the fact of the matter is we didn't have a border crisis under President Trump. Irene, what's your reaction? What say you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and everybody go to bordersecuritycoalition.com and sign up for updates. I completely disagree. I'm here at the border. This is my hometown. I've lived here all my life, and we've never seen what we see right now. He's talking about let's talk about solutions. The solution is to enforce the law. And on day one of his administration, Biden tied the hands of the Border Patrol agents. They took an oath to protect our borders, and they are not being allowed to do that. And the buck stops with the Democrats and the Democrat president. So the solution is enforce the laws, and we stop this crisis from one day to the next. We don't need any more laws. Our laws are good, and they're there to protect American citizens. So the question is, what exactly is a solution, since apparently enforcing the law is not the solution for Democrats? And let's remember, the Democrats don't even admit that there is a border crisis, and yet the stats are right there. And we see it every day. I see it in the corners of my street. I see it by the border wall. I see it every day. So for him to come and say that the Republicans are only pointing a finger, that's a lie. But we do need to enforce the laws immediately to protect Americans.
Another crisis that's spiraling out of control, the drug crisis, specifically when it comes to fentanyl. It was announced that 700 pounds of meth and fentanyl to kill almost 1 million people were seized in just 2 separate drug busts, both in Arizona. I'll go to you, David, first. What's your reaction about the fentanyl crisis? Fentanyl has been around for a long time, but we've never seen it in these type of numbers since we've seen all the migrants pouring in across the border. I'm not saying that the migrants specifically, but, we know that the drug cartels are getting richer by the day.
Well, first, the meth that was confiscated in those 2 different cars were both driven by U.S. citizens. And so we have to make sure that we remember that The overdose crisis is alarming, and it's running out of control. But the border issue is just one part of the solution. This has been raging out of control for years, and it's fentanyl, yes, a synthetic opioid, but it's also opioids that are sold over the counter. So there's multitudes of problems here. I think what we need to do is focus on the demand. We have to treat addiction for what it is. It's a disease. And no amount of law enforcement is going to solve that problem. Yes, it's part of the solution, but it's not the entirety. So I get very disturbed as someone that's worked on addiction issues for many years to see that, oh, it's as simple as just solving the problem at the border. Fentanyl is cheap. It's easy to make. The Drug Enforcement Agency tells us that it's about equivalent to about 40 grains of salt. In terms of just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. So yes, we need to do what we can to stop it. From China to Mexico to the border, but it goes deeper than that. And I couldn't agree with you more that it's a multifaceted problem, that it is a disease. But we have seen that when we have decriminalized drug use, that we've actually seen overdoses go up. So, treating it as a crime does play a part in trying to stem the addiction. I'll give you the final thoughts, Irene. I'm sorry, Irene. Just final thoughts, real quick, and your reaction to the drug crisis.
Well, I mean, this is the real pandemic, right? The real pandemic is, unfortunately, thousands of U.S. citizens are dying every day by having access to the fentanyl. We've never seen these kinds of numbers, but we can talk about as the administration is evaluating, refine, and improve strategies. Do these strategies include closing the border to illegal aliens? Okay, fine. The U.S. citizens were driving those cars. But how did the drugs get across? It's because the administration will not admit that they have actually fomented and caused the border crisis. So if the drugs are getting to the hands of not only the soldiers, but our children, then the Biden administration and the Democrats are at fault.
Well, thank you so much. I know we could go on and on. Thank you both for being with us this evening. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, guys, check this out. William C. spotted NewsMax